My boss always said money changes people. She just never expected it to change me, and certainly not in a way that would flip her entire life upside down. The day she won $16.8 million in the state lottery, she walked into the office like a queen returning from conquest. She wasn't obnoxious about it, in the beginning. She smiled, handed out coffee, hugged people. But then her family found out. And within a week, I went from being the employee she trusted most to the outsider her in-laws wanted gone. And they weren't subtle about it. One afternoon, after a meeting, her mother-in-law looked me straight in the eye and said, "You've gotten too comfortable in my daughter's life." The next day, my boss asked me to pack my things. No explanation. No warning. No apology. Just an empty-handed goodbye after 8 loyal years. The humiliation hit harder than the loss. I had managed her schedule, protected her secrets, helped her survive boardroom traps, yet the moment her family sniffed money, they treated me like a contaminant. I could have walked away quietly. I could have let the bitterness consume me. But destiny has a twisted sense of timing, and karma prefers to work with paperwork. In this case, a prenup. A beautiful, detailed, ironclad prenup I knew more intimately than anyone else in her life. Because I was the one who organized it, filed it, photocopied it, and, most importantly, digitally archived it with lawyer-approved timestamps. Her husband had always been a parasite wrapped in expensive cologne. Years ago, when he pushed her into signing that prenup, she felt trapped, afraid to challenge him. But the document ended up protecting her, not him. His family thought they could pressure her, isolate her, and force her to share her lottery winnings. What they didn't know, what even she had forgotten, was that the prenup clearly stated, any financial gain acquired independently, including lottery winnings, inheritance, or personal bonuses, remained solely hers. But the part they really underestimated was me. Because attached to the prenup was a clause her husband inserted, attempting to control her finances by requiring personal management support in exchange for marital allowances. A laughable, outdated clause that essentially tied spousal incentives to documented professional assistance. Do you know who had 8 years of documentation? Emails? Payroll logs? Travel records? Performance reports? Me. And when her husband tried to claim part of the lottery winnings, citing shared financial responsibilities, the lawyers asked for proof of his contributions. What he didn't expect was that my firing made me legally free to provide every file, every timestamp, every message showing he had done nothing. That I had done everything. My boss didn't know whether to cry or scream when she realized her own husband was about to lose millions while I, her assistant she'd kicked out, was about to benefit from the very documents she'd trusted me to manage. When the court reviewed the prenup along with the spousal responsibility clause he had insisted on years earlier, the judge didn't even hesitate. The husband's side had violated terms. The spouse, my boss, retained all lottery winnings. But the twist? The outdated clause also required him to compensate the person who fulfilled those responsibilities during the marriage. That person was me. The amount? Calculated from years of backdated valuations, role-based assessments, and contract-level adjustments. $5.6 million. Not because I sued. Not because I schemed. But because their own greed weaponized their own document against them. I'll never forget the moment her husband's lawyer read the number aloud. His family's jaws dropped. My boss looked like she'd been slapped by the universe. She whispered my name in disbelief, almost pleading. But I wasn't angry anymore. Not vindictive. Just done. I walked out of the courtroom as a free man, no box in my hand this time. No shame on my shoulders. No orders from anyone. Just a quiet, steady sense of justice settling in my chest. They tried to erase me from their world. Instead, their own signature made me rich enough to build my own. Sometimes revenge isn't planned. Sometimes it's written years before the betrayal, hidden in the fine print, waiting for the perfect moment to rise. And when it does, it doesn't just balance the scales. It rewrites your life. For days after the court ruling, my phone buzzed with messages I didn't bother opening. Some were from old coworkers who'd heard the news and wanted to catch up. Others were from people who once ignored me but suddenly found me interesting now that the settlement had gone public. Even my former boss, sent a long apology filled with excuses, explanations, and regrets. I didn't hate her. I didn't even resent her. But her message felt like a hand reaching back for something she had already thrown away. What stung wasn't the firing. It was how easily she let her family dictate her decisions. 8 years of trust evaporated in one afternoon because her mother-in-law raised her eyebrows. 8 years of loyalty undone by a single insecure moment. Money doesn't change people. It reveals them. But what none of them expected was that I didn't spend my settlement on revenge. I didn't buy a flashy car, or throw it in their faces, or brag online. I used the first weeks of freedom to simply breathe. For the first time in a decade, I woke up without an alarm clock, without someone else's problems waiting for me, without a calendar packed with meetings that didn't matter. Silence became a luxury. Space became priceless. Still, as much as peace felt good, the world around me didn't stay quiet. Her husband's family began to implode, not because of me, but because the prenup exposed truths they'd ignored for years. His financial irresponsibility. His hidden debts. His manipulations. The press got wind of the court ruling, and suddenly every business blog was dissecting the $5.6 million assistant and the foolish husband who weaponized his own prenup. Their once respected family name became a running joke online. My boss, meanwhile, tried to repair the damage between us. She even asked to meet in person. I agreed, not out of kindness, but because closure deserves a face. We met at a quiet cafe, far from her family, far from the office that no longer belonged to me. She looked different, tired, thinner, humbled in a way I had never seen before. She started to speak, but I stopped her. "You don't need to apologize," I said. "Yes, I do," she insisted, voice cracking. "They made me believe you were too close. That you were taking advantage." I let them twist my thinking. I was weak. I studied her for a long moment. "You weren't weak," I said finally. "You just trusted the wrong people." Her eyes shined with guilt. "I never thought you'd leave. I never thought a document would turn everything upside down." I shook my head. "The document didn't betray your family. Their behavior did." She looked like she wanted to grab my hands, pull me back into her orbit, rebuild the professional world we once shared. But she couldn't, not anymore. The contract was broken the moment she told me to pack my things. "I'm glad you won," I said. "But I'm glad I walked away even more." She wiped a tear quickly, embarrassed. "Are we still friends?" Friend. The word felt strange between us now. Like a coat that no longer fit. "We're not enemies," I said gently. "But we're not who we were." She nodded and didn't argue. That was the first sign she was truly changing. When we parted ways, she hugged me with a softness she had never shown before. Maybe she realized money didn't buy loyalty. It tested it. I walked away lighter, not because of the money, but because some doors deserve to stay closed, no matter how familiar the hallway once felt. But the story didn't end there. Because somewhere in the wreckage her family caused was an opportunity neither of us saw coming. One that was about to turn my $5.6 million settlement into something far bigger. Opportunities tend to arrive disguised as chaos, something I learned only after walking away from the people who underestimated me. The settlement gave me security, but it was what happened next that gave me direction. 2 months after the court case, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it. Peace had become addictive, but curiosity won. "Is this Aaron?" the voice asked. Calm. Precise. Corporate, but not arrogant. "Yes," I said cautiously. "This is Deborah Lorne, managing partner at Lorne & Associates. We've been following the case. Congratulations, by the way. You handled yourself exceptionally." I blinked. That law firm was one of the sharpest in the region, boutique, selective, and notoriously expensive. "What can I help you with?" "You misunderstand," she said lightly. "We want to help you." I frowned. "With what?" "With starting your own consulting firm." That sentence hit like a detonation, quiet, shockingly simple, and world-shifting. She explained that they'd been reviewing the prenup filings, the court transcripts, the archived management logs I had kept for years. In their view, I hadn't just been an assistant. I had been a strategist, quiet, invisible, and essential to the functioning of a multi-million-dollar enterprise. "You understand executives better than most consultants," she said. "You've built systems, managed crises, controlled schedules, stabilized operations. And you did it all without the title." She wasn't flattering me. She was stating facts buried beneath 8 years of loyalty. "And why would your firm be interested in me?" I asked, still suspicious. "Simple," she replied. "Executives we represent need guidance. Discreet, intelligent, trustworthy guidance. Someone who can navigate the messes they create before we have to litigate them." She paused. "You, Aaron, have a talent for preventing disasters. There's a market for that." My mind raced. I had money. I had time. I had experience. But more importantly, I had contacts. Every board member, every executive I'd worked with, every client we'd handled. I had earned their respect long before I realized it. Deborah continued, "We'll handle your legal structure, branding, contracts, and initial outreach. You would be the founder, not an employee. In exchange, we simply want priority referrals when your clients require legal representation." It was a partnership. Not servitude. Not dependency. A partnership. I agreed to a meeting. And 3 weeks later, Grayson Consulting was born. The day my company officially launched, I received a message I didn't expect, from my former boss. "Congratulations on your firm. I'm proud of you. Truly. If you ever need anything, advice, a contact, a referral, I'm here." For a moment, I let myself feel the nostalgia, the echo of 8 years working side by side. But that emotion faded quickly. Because my new world wasn't built on loyalty to her anymore. It was built on loyalty to myself. Still, I replied politely. "Thank you. Wishing you well." She tried once more, offering to send clients my way, to take me out for lunch, to reconnect. But I kept the boundary clean. Firm. Respectful. The truth was simple, we were on different paths now. Paths that didn't circle back. 3 months into running my firm, I landed my biggest contract yet, a $12.5 million turnaround for a regional tech company drowning in internal mismanagement. Word spread fast. The settlement assistant had become the consultant executives called before their companies caught fire. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent a decade saving one boss. Now I was getting paid a fortune to save many. But the moment that truly sealed everything came unexpectedly, through a headline I stumbled upon while drinking coffee at a quiet cafe: "Lot of winner files for divorce, Husband's family under investigation for coercion. Source confirms she is seeking full independence. I placed the phone down slowly. She wasn't running anymore. She was cutting ties. Finally. The nightmare her family created, the betrayal of firing me, the shock of losing millions, it had all pushed her into strength she never had before. And strangely, I felt proud of her. Not as her former employee, but as someone who understood how liberating it felt to reclaim your life. We weren't friends. We weren't enemies. We were simply two people who survived the same storm and walked out on different shores. As I left the cafe, the city felt warmer, brighter, more alive. I wasn't the assistant packing his box anymore. I wasn't the man her family dismissed. I wasn't someone defined by humiliation. I was the architect of my own rise. And as I walked into my new office, glass walls, polished desks, staff who followed my lead, I realized something deeply satisfying. They didn't just kick me out of their world. They pushed me into building a better one. One where I no longer served power, but became it. Sophia's voice trembled as she closed the door behind her, the echo rolling down the marble hallway like an accusation. She didn't cry. She had cried enough in the past week to fill a reservoir. Now, she was done. Done being manipulated. Done being disposable. Done being loyal to people who treated loyalty like a weakness. She had given her boss, Helena Voss, 8 years of absolute dedication, late nights, skipped vacations, the emotional labor of holding a collapsing company together while Helena played the genius visionary on magazine covers. And yet the moment Helena's husband won $16.8 million in a sudden investment windfall, everything shifted. The Voss family saw Sophia not as the operational backbone of Voss Dynamics, but as a burden. A stray. A servant who had overstayed her welcome. They kicked her out of the company apartment she had lived in for 5 years. No warning. No gratitude. Just a cold letter typed by an assistant who didn't even know her last name. The official reason? Reallocation of resources in support of the family's new financial structure. But Sophia wasn't stupid. This wasn't about money. It was about power. And Helena's family, particularly her brother, Mason, had been waiting for the moment to replace her with one of their own. Fine, Sophia thought as she dragged her suitcase into the street that night. Let them take everything. Just wait until they see what they already signed away. Helena had always insisted on prenups. Not for my protection, just good governance, she'd say. But she never let anyone outside legal counsel read them. Except Sophia. Because Helena trusted her to coordinate signatures, track amendments, and file everything correctly. And buried deep within Amendment 14C, an addendum Helena signed with her husband during a rough patch, was a line Sophia never forgot: any non-family executive whose continuity predates the marital financial restructuring shall be entitled to 10% of asset appreciation resulting from liquidity events impacting majority shares. Helena's husband's sudden $16.8 million win? A liquidity impact event. The assets affected? Joint investments. The timeline? Sophia had been at the company far longer than the marriage's financial restructurings. The prenup wasn't written to protect Sophia. But in Helena's arrogance, she had crafted something that unintentionally did. Sophia could either walk away silently, or she could claim the $5.6 million the prenup guaranteed her. She chose silence for exactly 5 days. On the 6th, her lawyer delivered the papers. Helena didn't understand at first. Her husband didn't understand at second. By the 10th page, Mason understood perfectly and turned pale. You owe her what?" he sputtered, jabbing a finger at the document like it might set him on fire. Helena snatched the prenup, flipping through it as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less humiliating. This wasn't meant for employees. She wasn't supposed to have access. Why would this be here? Who let this be filed? Helena muttered, dissolving into a frantic spiral. Sophia imagined her pacing in the Voss mansion's glass kitchen, her immaculate life finally cracking at the edges. It must have been quite a sight. Helena tried everything. Threats. Lawyers. Character attacks. A friendly renegotiation. NDA bribes. But the prenup was ironclad. And Sophia's lawyer was relentless. When Helena realized she couldn't win, she went for the only thing she thought would work. She called. "Sophia, we can talk about this," Helena said, her voice trembling under the weight of humiliation. "We can work something out without legal escalation." Sophia listened. She let Helena ramble. She let her panic. She let her feel every ounce of the arrogance she once wielded like a blade. When Helena finally went quiet, Sophia said, "You kicked me out as if I was nothing. But you signed something that said otherwise. This isn't revenge, Helena. This is paperwork." And then she hung up. 2 weeks later, the wire transfer hit Sophia's account. $5.6 million. The exact amount Helena's own prenup entitled her to. The exact amount Helena's family swore she didn't deserve. The exact amount that made Sophia freer than she had ever been. She used $300,000 to buy a warm, sun-filled condo overlooking the water. She used another portion to invest in herself, her own consulting firm, her own legacy. And the rest? She left untouched. A reminder of what she escaped. Helena? Her marriage fractured. Her company's board began questioning her judgment. Mason lost his influence overnight. Revenge wasn't an explosion. It was a signature. A quiet clause. A moment of arrogance Helena never thought would matter. Sophia didn't need to destroy Helena. Helena had already destroyed herself. All Sophia did was collect what she was owed. And in the end, that was the real victory. Not the money. Not the legal win. Not even the satisfaction of watching the Voss empire wobble under the weight of its own hypocrisy. It was the peace. The quiet mornings in her new condo, sunlight touching the floor like a warm apology from the universe. The first cup of coffee she brewed in a kitchen she actually owned. The silence, no urgent texts, no midnight crises, no demanding voices claiming her time, her loyalty, her life. For the first time in years, Sophia belonged to no one. She owed nothing. She answered to no one. She finally breathed. Helena continued spinning in circles, trying to contain the fallout of her own carelessness. Mason kept searching for a loophole that didn't exist. And the Voss family, once so eager to push Sophia out, now whispered her name like a ghost they accidentally summoned. But Sophia never looked back. She didn't need applause. She didn't need revenge fantasies. She didn't need Helena to collapse for her to rise. She had already won the moment she walked away with her dignity, and the $5.6 million they handed to her without realizing it. Irony, after all, is the sweetest form of justice. And as Sophia stood on her balcony one evening, watching the city lights flicker like distant constellations, she finally understood, being kicked out was never the end. It was the beginning of the life she deserved.